All right, welcome back, Bear Down. I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you the 53-man roster is set and the 16-man practice squad is set, because it's not. It changes from here, and we have no idea what that man right there, ryanpoles, has up his sleeve, what he's going to do. And there's positions that need to be addressed still. There's injured reserve that have to be settled. There's players that need to be trimmed at certain spots, and we might still add someone. So I'm not going to say we're there yet. So that's why I keep saying I'm not going to do my salary cap video yet, but a lot of you have asked questions. This is the nerdy type of video. This is the video that a lot of you guys that really want to know the guts and the details of the team are all about. So I'm going to show you guys where we stand right now and what it means moving forward, not only for this year, but for the future, because this team is in a really good position with salary cap and with future contracts. We don't have a lot of positions coming up that have to be addressed. We have very few contracts that are really priority contracts that need to be addressed. I'm not going to go into my speculation on this video. I'm going to do one of those very soon. In fact, as we go through the next 9 days and as we wait for the season to start, I always do a hypothetical mock draft for next year. That's just for fun. We'll do that next week. But right now, we're just going to go over the salary cap. So this is where we stand right now. The cap space as of today is $8,935,659. That's about what ryanpoles likes to go into the season with. And a lot of you might ask, well, where did so much of that go? Well, we're not just carrying 53 guys right now and 16 practice squad guys. These guys below here are the injured cap, and we're carrying those guys as well. So that's a big chunk. That's, if you look right in the middle there, the injured cap, that's $7.5 million. So this is the big part of this video that helps people understand where things go from here. As players are injured at the end of camp, at the end of 90-man roster, they have to do one of two things. Basically, like you saw on Hard Knocks, you have to redshirt them. I'm putting that in quotations because that's not a real thing for the NFL, but that's what you're doing. With someone like Ian Wheeler, that's what they're going to do. They saw the value in him. They don't want to lose him. They've got 3 years of control with him. They're going to go ahead and pay a reduced amount for the injury list, and they're going to go ahead and retain him for 2025. So he'll make that $472,500. Other players, they have to come to what's called an injury settlement for that player to play somewhere else. An injury settlement just means they're going to pay them out the amount of time that they basically would have been injured and not able to come off the injured list if they want to go sign somewhere else. That's not the number there. This is just what the Bears are on the hook for their injured list while they're with us. So you see players like Simba Webster, Dante Pettis, and Douglas Coleman. They're all not designated to come back. So those are all going to have waived already for Douglas Coleman. He's already waived, but the Bears are going to pay him out while he's injured. I don't have the details. I don't think anybody does yet about how bad that neck or head injury was. He is released from the hospital, which is great. Glad to see it. That was very scary. But they're on the hook for him until they come to a settlement. I think what I understand is they're going to pay that entire $470,000, which is a class act move by the Bears, because a lot of teams are probably scared to be able to even sign him after that injury. That's a scary thing to happen. Good player. He'll probably have the rest of this year off, recover, and be able to come into next year. Players like Simba Webster and Dante Pettis sound like they could come back. Not very strenuous injuries. Groin for Simba Webster, and Dante Pettis is undisclosed, but it didn't sound very serious. So the Bears will have to come to an injury settlement with them is what they have to do, and then they'll be able to go play somewhere else. Players like Larry Borum, Jake Martin, and Patrick Scales, they're starting the year with a designation they can come back, but they have to miss a minimum of 4 games. And the reason you can only do 2 of those designated to come back, that's Larry Borum and Jake Martin. The reason you saw the not mix-up, but the way the Bears handled it with Patrick Scales, Kerry Blasingame being cut, and then signing him back to the exact same contract, it's because they had to wait till the 90-man cutdowns were over. Then it's a new period. Patrick Scales is on the team. He can go to the IR and then come back 4 games into the season, and that's why they did that. So they have 3 of those players right now. To me, Larry Borum is very expendable. So even if you don't cut him, somebody else will get cut, and that will save some salary cap because there's people on this roster. To me, Larry Borum, who was one of the worst swing tackles in the NFL last year, graded like 96th out of 99 qualified. I mean, he was terrible. He had a good preseason, a better than average preseason is what I should say. So I don't see him as a necessary piece of this team, and we would save most of that $3.19 million when he comes back. So if you cut him after those 4 games and you take the dead cap, I think the dead cap was only $83,000 for him, and you've paid him for 4 games of the 17-game season, you're still saving $2.5 million off of Larry Borum's contract. To me, that's worth it. But we'll see what the Bears do, and which is why I haven't made the salary cap video yet. We're doing it now, but I'll explain those things in there. So even though it looks like the cap space is $8.9 million, this is more like, depending on what happens with Larry Borum is the big thing. This is more of a 10, 11, possibly up to 13, 14 million salary cap if Larry Borum gets cut, just depending on who gets cut and who gets shuffled around. This is really more of 10, 11, 12, possibly even more million in salary cap. So the Bears are still in really good space. But then you look at 2025, and the estimated salary cap right now, according to Spotrac and other places that see the contracts coming up for TV deals and how much teams are going to increase, they say it's about 273. So the Bears right now have about 74 million in salary cap, which isn't a lot if you have a lot of contracts you have to fill, but the Bears don't. They're in really good shape. So we're going to go through this. Let's first go to our offensive linemen. Our offensive linemen are set the way they are. You see Larry Borum with the IR designation. You've got Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Coleman Shelton, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright, Kieran Amagaji, Bill Murray, Ryan Bates, Matt Pryor, Doug Kramer. Really, Matt Pryor would shift over to that swing tackle, as you heard Matt Eberflus talk about. But on the right there, look at the contracts. The dark orange would be the ones that are coming up at the end of this year. So there's 2 major contracts, Tevin Jenkins and Coleman Shelton. Depending on how Coleman Shelton does, absolutely extend him, because if you've built chemistry with Caleb Williams, your young rookie, you don't want to be switching the center position out constantly. So if he plays well, if he plays like he sounds like already, like he's the glue of this team right now, of the offensive line at least, then you extend him for sure. But other than that, the light orange colors are ones coming up next year, so we got a couple to worry about. You might even cut Nate Davis with his favorable contract at the end of this season into next offseason. We'll see how he does. That's not something to hit right now, but Braxton Jones would be coming up next year. Do we draft an offensive tackle? Do we see how Kieran Amagaji does? Those are all things to be answered later, but there's some solid pieces here and not a lot that's coming up. This position, more than other positions, do have some things that need to be addressed. I can see both of these be extended, though, Tevin Jenkins and Coleman Shelton. So we'll go through all the positions just like this. Next would be the quarterbacks and running backs, and really just Khalil Herbert, who I don't think will extend, and you can replace him. Ian Wheeler could come off the IR. You've also got Velus Jones Jr., who could completely convert. He right now is listed as a wide receiver, but he can completely convert. We'll see what happens. He's more of a scat back type of player. But then you have Travis Homer and Kerry Blasingame coming to the end of their contracts, and Tyson Bagent for quarterback at the end of next year would be a restricted free agent, so we can keep him as well. So this is just something you can kind of look along as we go here. But really, I'll show you in the middle where we need to address things in the offseason. Receivers and tight ends, you've got DJ Moore. Keenan Allen is on his 1-year deal. Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Tyler Scott. All those guys are extended into multiple years. So the main core of this group is here for years to come. Then you got DeAndre Carter on a 1-year deal, but he's really wide receiver 6, punt return. We'll see how his role ends up shaping out. You got Velus Jones, who's at the end of next year. Gerald Everett, end of next year. Mercedes Lewis, 1 year, and he'll probably retire after this year. Then you got Dante Pettis and Simba Webster, who are really going to be settled, and they won't even be on the team once those settlements get figured out and resolved. So not a lot to address there. And then you get to, where we are, and you look right there in the middle. Starters, offensive guard, center, and wide receiver. That's all we really need to replace. And you look at the draft picks, we got our first and 132. Why not be optimistic? Why not say we're going to win the Super Bowl? Just don't get focused on where I put the numbers, just the rounds. We got our first. It's not Carolina's first. I made a boo-boo there. Excuse me. It's Carolina's second. 133 is the beginning of the second round. Our own second, our own third, and then all the rumors are, and the new report that came out was Ian Cunningham was anonymously voted the most desirable GM candidate by all the other teams who were interviewed and surveyed. So most likely he'll get a GM job this next year, which would make us applicable to the Rooney Rule, the diversity initiative, where we'll get a comp third-round pick. The very end of the third round, we'll get a comp pick. And then the fourth-round pick from Justin Fields could be a sixth. So I'm being very optimistic with these. But we've got 8 picks here if Ian Cunningham becomes a GM, 5th rounder, then a 7th rounder. So there's a lot of things to work with. That fifth and seventh rounder, you don't really expect to be a piece that is, something that will necessarily be a starter. But if you use that fifth rounder on a running back, you're finding fourth, fifth, sixth round running backs all the time to replace Khalil Herbert. That's a value spot to put that. Then you just have the three offensive guards, center, and wide receiver. Well, we've got the defensive side of the ball too. So let's look at the defensive side. Here's your defensive line. And, of course, when Jake Martin comes back, something's going to have to happen. Is it Dominic Robinson being cut? Is it Daniel Hardy being cut? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but some move will have to be made for Jake Martin to be able to come back onto this team once that time is ready. But on the right there, you see Montez Sweat, Jervon Dexter, Zach Pickens, Austin Booker, all signed through the next 2 years. You got Andrew Billings and DeMarcus Walker that will have to be addressed next year. But this year, it's just the pieces that we're really kind of supplementing. Darrell Taylor, Chris Williams, Jake Martin, Daniel Hardy, none of those are primary pieces of this defense and very easily replaced with the draft picks next year, with next year's defensive tackle, defensive end groups that are really the highlight of next year's draft. So we could easily continue to fill out this defense very well. And then we'll go to the linebackers and nickelbacks. And you've got Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn, who is at the end of his contract. He's a restricted free agent, so we could just kind of tab what other teams see he's valuable for. Kyler Gordon and TJ Edwards are coming up on their contracts next year. But then it's Eamon Ogbongbemiga and Josh Blackwell, who are backup roles. Might not even re-sign them, or they could sign back at a value deal. And Noah Sewell, who signed through 2026, there's not a whole lot to replace there either. There's good position for the contracts, especially with Jack Sanborn being a restricted free agent. We could just match any qualifying offer some other team puts out for him. That might be the way we see it happen. Then you get to your cornerbacks and your safeties, and look, there's only one orange there, and that's backup Jalen Jones, who's a good cornerback / safety. He can rotate between both really well. But everybody else on this secondary is locked in for the next 2 years at least, this year and next year. Really good position to be in for the Bears. So you look at where that stands. Only one starter needs to be addressed, and we probably re-sign him anyways. So you're looking here between offense and defense, a little line help, maybe getting some defensive tackle, defensive end help to improve positions, but we're not replacing a lot of starters. Really, a guard, a center, do you re-sign some of them? I would hope we re-sign Tevin and re-sign Coleman Shelton. Then you're just building value at that point. You can go back to all these positions and look, well, we got a couple safeties coming up. We got cornerbacks coming up. We do need to address some linebackers at some point for depth. Defensive end and defensive tackle is the major position coming up, so maybe we go there. You've got a wide receiver. We can get a value wide receiver and a high round pick. You can get a running back in the 5th round. You can get a high center in the 2nd round. So there's so many things the Bears can do with where these contracts are coming up that it's really a really good position that the Bears are in right now. So it makes me excited that this team doesn't have a lot of needs to fill, and we have all these draft picks coming up. And yeah, I realize I put Carolina first. It's their second. It's like a first-round pick is what I was thinking in my head, but really it's a second-round pick. But you've got a first, 2 seconds, 2/3 most likely value picks. And then if you pick a running back up in the 5th round or a 4th round or a linebacker in the 4th, 5th round, those are good positions to pick up there. They can usually work out, be strong positions still in the 4th and 5th round to be able to be your backups and eventual starters or starters right off the bat for running backs sometimes. That's a really good position to be in. You can address that linebacker. You can address the guard. You can address the center. You can address the wide receiver. You can address the defensive end. You can address the defensive tackle. Maybe offensive tackle even, and you're still in really good shape. So this team is in really, really good shape with where this salary cap is. We'll move that back up here. With where this salary cap is. And once they designate or settle these injuries, I'll give you a better salary cap video, but I see them being able to use some of that salary cap to maybe extend Tevin Jenkins mid-season. If you see Larry Borum cut and you've got that extra $3.2 million or 2.5 or 2.7 or whatever it is at that point, and you see him get cut and another team pick him up. You heard about and we could even trade him. You could even trade him if his injury comes back well and we get around week 4 and a team like the Patriots or the Saints really want a good swing tackle or a tackle that can come in and compete. They could trade for Larry Borum mid-season before the trade deadline. even around week 4, and you could see him come off the books that way, and we get another draft pick. So there's a lot to happen still. You might even see a trade or something happen today. You can see a lot happen before the season starts. We're a week away from football right now. A couple big games at the beginning of Thursday and Friday, and then the Bears will be 9 days from now. So we're coming up on it, but there's still a lot of things to be decided. So there's a lot to stay tuned for. I'll let you guys know as we update the salary cap, but it should be around 10, 11, 12 million-ish if Larry Borom gets cut week 3 or 4, or if we trade him week 3 or 4. You'll see that number go up. Then you can see us extending Tevin Jenkins and give him a little money this year, kicking a little bit of that into it this year. The way they work the contracts, you could see Coleman Shelton get in a year. I don't see that happening until the end of the year. See how he does all year. You could get a year extension as we draft a center and develop behind him. Wide receiver could be drafted. You could extend Keenan Allen even. It could happen. We'll see what happens. The desire is there for both sides on that side, I think, but it's just a value of where he stands at his age. So we'll see where it goes. But that's kind of the updated salary cap, where we stand right now. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Appreciate all of you guys. If you haven't hit the like button by now, please do so. And until next time, claws up, bear down, and dabears.